Our focus today is building competencies for the organizational future. No one can deny that having a solid competency framework isn't just a HR initiative. It's a strategic imperative for long-term sustainability and growth. Let's explore how we can build a workforce truly prepared for the future. This presentation series is based on the book Competency Based Human Resource Management, Future of Work, a Himalaya publication, authored by Dr. Ganesh Shermon of KPMG and now RiverForest Connections LLP. Before we get into the mechanics, let's define what we mean by competencies. At an organizational level, these are the collective capabilities, strengths, and attributes that form the bedrock of our success. We generally split these into two broad categories. First, core competencies. These are our fundamental strengths, the operational efficiencies and technical expertise that keeps us in the game. Second, we have distinctive competencies. This is our secret sauce. These are the unique capabilities like an innovative design process or a hyper-efficient supply chain that our competitors cannot easily replicate. It's what sets us apart. Why do competencies matter at a strategic level? First, they give us a competitive advantage. By knowing and capitalizing on our strengths, we stay ahead of rivals. Second, they drive performance and growth. When we align what our employees are good at with our strategic goals, both productivity and job satisfaction go up. Third, adaptability. In a world where markets change overnight, having a workforce with the right foundational competencies allow us to pivot quickly. Finally, resilience. A competency based culture is a learning culture which equips the organization to withstand and bounce back from external disruptions. Look at the diagram. You can see the competency flow. This illustrates that competencies aren't just theoretical concepts. It shows the direct pathway from an individual possessing a specific competency, applying it in their day to day role, and eventually driving a tangible business result. It's the bridge between raw talent and actual performance. So, what exactly makes up a competency? A competency is an underlying characteristic of a person which enables them to deliver superior performance in a given job, role, or a situation. There's a classical definition. It was also something that was quoted by Dr. Ganesh Sherman in the 2004 edition of the book Competency Based HR. It's helpful to think of it as an attribute bundle. It's a combination of several elements that together enable superior performance. It starts with knowledge, what you know, skills, what you can do, but it goes deeper into traits and behaviors like resilience, your social role, how you fit into a team as a leader or a mentor, your self image, how you view your own capabilities and your motives, the internal drives that push you to achieve goals. A true competency involves all of these layers working together. To understand the traits part of the bundle better, we can look at Ising's trait theory. This classic model visualizes personality along two main axes: introversion versus extroversion, and stability versus instability or neuroticism. As you can see in the four quadrants, this creates four distinct profiles: the melancholic, the choleric, the phlegmatic, and the sanguine. Understanding these inherent traits helps us understand why certain employees might naturally excel at specific competencies like leadership or careful analysis, and how they may react under pressure. One might wonder why we insist on defining competencies in terms of behaviors. The number one reason is clarity. Saying someone needs good communication is vague. Saying they need practice active listening provides a specific, observable indicator. Because it's observable, it allows for measurement and objective assessments. It also allows for targeted training. We can identify exactly where the skill gap is, and finally, it drives accountability, setting clear, unmistakable expectations for how day to day work should be executed. Imagine 8 pillars as those of a foundation that are mostly commonly used when organizations build their competency models. While every company is different, you will almost always see variations of these: customer focus, innovation, achievement orientation, strategic ability, execution excellence, developing self and others, problem solving, and team working. These form the universal baseline for high performing organizations in terms of competencies. Not all competencies apply to everyone in the exact same way. We need to look at them in a hierarchy. At the top, we have universal competencies. These apply to absolutely everyone in the company, from the CEO to the newest hire. Think continuous improvement. Next are process competencies, which are required for anyone working within a specific business flow: accounts payable, supply chain, information technology, human resources, payroll, and so on. Finally, we have functional or role competencies. These are the specific knowledge, abilities, personal attributes, and skills, what is otherwise called as CAPS, KAPS, required for one specific job title. Now, this is my favorite. We need to clear up a common area of confusion: competence versus competency. Competence is outcome based, it's about what is done. It simply means you have the ability to perform a task. Competency, on the other hand, is behaviorally based. It's about how the work is done. To put it in an operative definition, competence is having the ability to do the task. Competency is how you apply that ability through observable behaviors to produce superior results. Please study this schematic. We'll discuss this shortly. It's called the competency based human resource management model. This schematic is really the heart of CBHRM framework. We need to include culture and change to make it comprehensive enough for execution. Notice how the competency framework sits right at the center. It acts as the hub for the entire HR life cycle. It informs how we forecast, workforce planning, the tools we use in selections, hiring, interviews, how we structure performance management, scorecards, metrics, compensation, how we map out career planning, training, and succession planning. Competency is a common language that ties all of these HR functions together. Let's look at business linkages of competencies to globalization. Authors Singh et al. In 2008, in Competency and Performance Analysis of Small and Medium Enterprises and Large Organizations, discussed that globalization of markets and increasing expectations of customers has created a turbulent environment for organizations. The development of various competencies, behaviors, and manifestations by small and medium and large enterprises under various business contexts, pressures, and constraints. Levels of focus given on competency developed by large organizations differ significantly from SMEs. Findings of the study imply that SMEs should be as forward-thinking, proactive in their orientation as large organizations in making vigorous changes in terms of various processes, such as development of competencies, human resource management, upgrading of technology, and its applications and awareness about business, commercial, and competitive market. It is that approach that often throws up something new or exposes a weakness. We probably need numerous top to bottom processes and bottom to top processes before core competencies will be crystallized and have a really significant role in the development of organizational competence on different levels. This study will help organizations in shaping their business or HR strategies for developing competencies as per changing businesses, ecosystems, and market needs. To appreciate where we are, it helps to see where we've been. Mapping our jobs has evolved significantly. We started with scientific management, think, Taylor, and Ford, which just broke jobs down into mechanical, measurable tasks. Then came the human relations movement, which realized that interpersonal traits matter. Later, we developed BEI or behavioral event interviews to actually ask people for past examples of their skills in action. And significantly, David McClelland's research shifted the focus heavily towards human motives and the internal drive for achievement, which laid the foundation for modern competency modeling. This has since been progressed significantly. Historically, how did we measure these things? We used a few traditional systems. Threshold scales helped us define the bare minimum acceptable performance. BARS, behaviorally anchored rating scales, brought more objectivity by attaching specific behavioral examples to numerical scores. Role profiling was used to break down the exact experiences and KPS needed for seat. And 360-degree feedback became popular to gather a holistic view of an employee from their boss, peers, and direct reports. Here is a schematic of a competency template that includes the competency, also called as meta competency, the indicators for each of this competency, also called sub-competencies, and behaviors. These are the definitions of each of those sub-competencies. Add to this a competency definition for the meta competency, you will have a complete picture. When building a competency framework today, we do it across three distinct levels. Level 1 is strategic. This is where leadership aligns the vision and mission to create a centralized competency dictionary. Level 2 is architectural. Here we get into the structural design, defining employee bands, creating role maps, and designing the assessment templates. Level 3 is operational. This is where the rubber meets the road, implementing the framework through IDPs, individual development plans, gathering assessment data, and utilizing expert panels for evaluation. To wrap up our core slides, let's look at the challenges and what is next. Implementing this isn't always easy. You will face resistance to change from those comfortable with the old ways. There are also occasional conceptual ambiguity, debates over whether competencies drive performance or if high performance defines the competency. Looking at the future, digital transformation is forcing us to rapidly define new competencies around AI, data analytics, cybersecurity, and so on. Eventually, the biggest trend is a demand for agility, shifting our focus towards critical thinking and problem solving so our workforce can navigate a pretty uncertain world going forward. Now let's look at a real-world example. A major tech firm realized that traditional competitive advantages like proprietary tech were fading in a saturated market. The intervention was to shift entirely to competency management. They clearly separated their core operational competencies from their distinctive design competencies and focused all training on building those specific attribute bundles. The result? By focusing on how tasks were executed rather than just what was done, they vastly improved learning agility, translating knowledge into observable innovation and securing long term market dominance. Our second case involves a legacy enterprise suffering from stagnant growth, high turnover, largely because HR was relying on outdated task based job descriptions. The CEO pushed for a full transition to a CBHRM system. HR built a comprehensive competency dictionary, creating a shared language of behaviors across the company. They rebuilt recruitment, appraisals, and succession around this dictionary. The outcome was transformative. They aligned their people with the business strategy, boosted engagement, and elevated human resources from an administrative backend to a true strategic business partner. Finally, let's look at leadership development. A corporate organization found their leadership pipeline was failing. They realized they were choosing programs based on charisma and looks rather than evidence, resulting in no real behavioral change. To fix this, they overhauled the program, focusing on vision, method, and impact. They tied leadership behaviors directly to corporate strategy, used evidence based coaching, and implemented a strict 360-degree feedback to measure actual behavioral shift. By holding the program to scientific standards, they stopped wasting money, rebuilt trust, and treated an agile pipeline of leaders ready to drive real change. Having articulated the strategy of the firm in the earlier part of this case study as well as the entire presentation, it's important to provide a brief appreciation of the key elements of the competency mapping process and demonstrate its linear linkage to the strategy of the firm. This can be classified into three levels as seen in the picture here, with each of the levels denoting an aspect of the competency mapping process and its overall linkages. There are three levels of competency framework. Level 1 competency framework includes organizational vision, aspiration, foresight, business landscape in which the business operates. Second, articulation of a strategy, core competence, the delineation of the business plan, defining critical success factors and key performance indicators. 3. Creating a competency dictionary in sync with core competence of the firm. 4. Defining the HR strategy and its influence on the core strategy of the firm. The level 2 of the competency framework essentially has 4 points. 1. Organizational structure and architecture, including roles and responsibilities. 2. Defining employee bands, role maps, job clusters, defining variation in levels. 3. Determining the assessment set. 4. Assessment worksheets for individuals, including templates, key areas to be covered, mega and sub-competency differentiation. Level 3 of the competency framework, and there are 5 points here. 1. Short-term initiative in terms of individual development plans. 2. Long-term initiatives in terms of individual development plans and collective team plans and so on. Number 3, integrated individual development plans with that of the firm, the strategy, the department, function, role, and so on. Number 4, assessment data, individual and summarized. And number 5, assessment technique, methods, tools, formats, expert panels, and so on. That kind of provides you a comprehensive, what one would call as a leadership plan, as well as creating a competency mapping process is concerned.